What's up in War Eagle, War Rapport family? It's your guy, Ike Jones, and we are here with the midweek rapport, talking a little bit about spring ball here at Auburn. And the question we have that Coach Hugh Freeze asked is, why not Auburn? We'll dig into that, and we'll talk a little basketball. But y'all know how we do. We're getting right into it. It's the midweek rapport coming right at you. Out there in the world of the War Rapport and Auburn family, we're here, midweek rapport, brought to you by the Rage Rooms in both Opelika and Birmingham. Opelika Rage Room there in the Auburn area is at 1510 2nd Avenue in Opelika, Alabama. If you're in the Birmingham area, you can go to 2616 7th Avenue South location, and it is a place where you can just take out your frustrations. If you were one of those people screaming at your television or computer or phone, I don't know, you listening on the radio, screaming at your radio, hopefully not scaring the kids and the dogs like I do sometimes when I'm watching games here at the house, and you just need to get that frustration out. Two locations for you in the Auburn area and the Birmingham area, and tell them the War Report sent you over there, and they'll get you some free stuff to break. But yeah, we appreciate them for sponsoring that, and we are here tonight. It's just myself and B. Will. Mike G is covering the women's basketball game, which tips off in just about an hour. Auburn taking on Mississippi State. Caesar has the afternoon off, but we're here, and we're going to talk a little bit of spring ball, man. I'm going to forego all the other announcements I normally make, and I'll do them later because I just don't want to talk that much, man. It's just too much of me talking incessantly about a bunch of stuff that ain't the point, because the point is spring ball started, and Coach Hugh Freeze had his first press conference to talk a little bit about what we can expect. Did you get a chance to watch that yet in its totality?
Yeah.
What were your initial thoughts about what he said? I have a clip from a portion of it that's going to kind of encapsulate the conversation. There are a few points that he hit in there that I want to talk about, but what were your impressions of what Coach Hugh Freeze said?
The majority of the conversation was about culture. He opened emphasizing culture. Somebody asked him, what's different from last year? And he could have gone a lot of different ways as far as how many different players, and he kind of harped on culture. The tone of the room, how the players set a standard, and how he expects the players, or he said he enjoys it when it's player-led accountability and them setting the standard for what's going to be how they behave and how they conduct themselves, which lets me know, obviously, he was not a big fan of the culture last year.
Yeah, for sure.
We heard players say that. And in the offseason, after the bowl game was over, obviously it affected how the season played out. That's the best I can ascertain from what he said, from what we've heard players say, is a lack of buy-in, a lack of discipline, or a lack of cohesion among the team made it to where we didn't achieve what we could have achieved. And he actually said we should have won more games last year. I don't know if he said we could have or we should have, but either way.
Yeah, he definitely said that that team had the ability to win more games than they did last year, which I liked hearing him say and admit that, yes, he felt like there were they left some W's on the table out there. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, but, we got to get to the root of why, right? And that's one thing he did say he was still sorting out. Like, there's a lot of reasons, and we have to get to, what lessons he learned and everybody learned around the building as to why. But yes, definitely liked that.
Yeah. So I liked the view into just how much trouble was that thrown together staff and roster. It didn't work. That's fair. I think that's fair to say. I'm going to make that conclusion based on what I've heard him say, what I've heard players say, and the result on the field. Year one didn't work partly because too much of a mismatch of different things, different coaches, philosophy. He said, hey, I'm going back to my terminology and how I want to call plays, and RPO is going to be a big part of that, and also players. And so the year one didn't work. Now, I do think it's fair, always fair, to judge a coach by the result, because you are the coach and you make every decision that results in why these players are out here, who's out there, what they're running. But at the same time, I wouldn't dare judge anybody on a job as complicated as coaching college football on 1 year when you had half the tools in your box.
Yeah.
Stocking, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I thought you were finished. Continue.
I was stocking the box is part of the job. You got to give him time to do that. Then when he's working with only the tools that he thinks are going to get the job done, that's when you grade him. That's when you say, all right, this is the measure of what kind of coach you are going to be here or you have been here, and that's when it's fair. So I'm encouraged to hear that he wasn't happy with how year one went. I think, how could you be 6-7 at Auburn is not going to be a good year no matter what. But at least he's acknowledging some of the things that if we look from the outside and say, I don't know, it don't look like it's working. And then he can say, well, it kind of wasn't working. Like, okay, all right. We're not crazy. We see the results. Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things, sometimes we have to take victory laps out here when we start talking about stuff and people tell us, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, well, he kind of confirmed a lot of the stuff that we've been saying about a lot of things. I'm not going to go point for point and say, see, this is like, I don't think that it's necessary for me to do all of that. But I do want people at some point in time maybe to stop thinking that we're just pulling stuff out of a hat somewhere and we're actually talking to people and hearing things, and that kind of drives some of the things that we're saying, and it's not a narrative that we're trying to push. Like, it's just the reality of what's happening. But you know what? That's like asking for an Auburn fan to love Bama. It's just not going to happen. I understand that, and it is what it is. But we're going to keep speaking the truth over here and do what we got to do to make things happen, as far as keeping you all informed about what's going on with the team, even if it does seem like we're saying stuff that we can't verify. Just know it came from somewhere. Wasn't just random. Anyway, what I want to get into more so is some of the comments that he made. And this is a clip. It's about a minute or so of the presser. And it ended with today's theme. But I want to kind of talk about a couple of things that he talked about. What sparked this statement from Coach Hugh Freeze was a question about the absence of Nick Saban in the SEC. And this was Coach Freeze's response to that question about how it's different now in the SEC minus Nick Saban.
We actually talked this morning because it's next week spring break, and we're trying to arrange a little golf match, and it's different for sure. We need his voice to help us try to change some things, and I think he's willing to do that because he has a great love for this sport, and we all kind of respect each other in different ways depending on your relationships. But it is, I understand it. I get it. I mean, he's done it at a high level for a long time, and I'm sure he and Miss Terry wanted to enjoy some different type of lifestyle, but I do think he still has an itch to try to help the game, and he'll have a voice to do that. I do think it also, I've known Kalen a long time. We were both in NAIA together. I was at Lambeth and he was at Sioux Falls, and so I've known him for a long time, and he's a great human being and a great football coach that has some big shoes to fill, but I respect him and the job that he'll do. But it's definitely you feel like it all could be fool's gold without hard work and success, but you do feel like, man, there might be an opening, to capitalize on why not Auburn right now, and that'll be our message, and I'm sure they'll have a strong message too, and both will still get good players, and it'll be, but it is a different feel knowing Nick's not in the game right now.
So Coach Hugh Freeze saying, it's a different feeling without Coach Nick Saban around. The first thing I want to, kind of highlight from that clip is apparently they're all pretty decent friends. He said they were setting up, an opportunity for them to go play golf. So I don't know who all was involved in this golf game that they're going and they're setting up, and they were talking about, you're used to setting it up, and Coach Saban was a part of it. I want to know who is all part of the SEC coaches golf they're trying to get set up. Is this like a charity thing that they're doing? I don't know. I might not be in the know. Is that something that happens every year that they're going? I know I've seen pictures of Coach Freeze out there playing golf, but I want to know who all was in part of that golf game first and foremost that they were trying to set up. So thought that was interesting. The second thing that he said that I thought that was interesting confirms some things for me, and that is Nick Saban be complaining about stuff a lot. Now, he did say that he is the voice of some of the concerns that everybody has about certain things.
Right.
But, we often make fun of the fact that whenever Nick doesn't like something, he goes into these coaches' meetings and he starts complaining about it. Then they make some sort of change because he's the vocal one that's basically like, hey, I don't like this. We need to make a rule change about this. And lo and behold, rule change comes up. So he confirmed that for me in that statement, that Nick Saban has been the guy that's been consistently out there complaining about stuff, even if he was the voice of the people or the other coaches.
Yeah. I mean, he was the only living legend still coaching in the conference. Every other college football coaching legend is either not coaching or they're past. Bobby Bowden, Joe Paterno, those guys are gone. So Nick was the only one who had achieved so much success so early in his career. When I say early, I'm talking about before he hit his 70s, and then he was riding it out, man. He was able to influence the game in so many ways. I don't know if the trajectory of the SEC and ESPN's fortunes actually happened if not for Nick Saban. Like that, he was the impetus for the SEC gaining its dominance, the other schools in the SEC being lifted up in competition by result. And then the arrangement between the SEC and ESPN that was able to happen, get the SEC network. He did all that. So when he talked, people listened.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting how is anybody going to carry that weight? And he tried to say maybe Kirby will do that now. I don't think it doesn't seem like that's going to necessarily work. But good luck to Kirby on that. But I bet they like Nick Saban. I don't know how you do that well for so long and not be. Well, I guess you can be. Yeah, you're going to be influential. At the very least, you're going to be a big influence, even if you aren't liked. But I actually think Nick Saban was liked by pretty much all of his peers, honestly.
Yeah. I don't. It's clear Coach Freeze was saying, I'm not finna be that guy, though, right? Like, he's like, I'm not about to go in there being the one, voicing, being. He says that, but at the same time, he uses platform. Like, even in this press conference, he was like, they're in Indianapolis right now, and shout out to all the Auburn players that are in Indianapolis right now going through the combine. Did want to mention that, and we'll get some more into that once the combine is done. But shout out to all those guys out there chasing their NFL dreams. But they're probably in Indianapolis right now deciding on, how many, what did he say, how many signing days we're going to have. What do we have, like 5 now? Like, he takes his jabs every now and then at things. Right. So he says he's not going to be the vocal guy, but he definitely has his way of making sure his opinion is heard. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. But to your point, Nick Saban has been so influential, but a lot of it has to do with he won. You win a lot, and you get the graces of people, right? You're helping the SEC gets more money because Nick Saban's teams win in games. Yeah. Right. And so. And maybe, to that point, that's why he feels like maybe Kirby Smart's going to be the next one, because he's kind of that guy who's been the best. People, I've said it myself that I thought that Kirby Smart had taken over as far as current program best coach in college football. I think Kirby Smart had stepped into that space in the last couple of years. But, he's the natural next successor there. But then he gets into the point that I want to get into, and this is the question that I have, and I will ask you the same question that Coach Hugh Freeze says that he asks, and he's now using at his messaging, and why not Auburn? It's a good question to ask. Why not Auburn, right? In the absence of Nick Saban in the SEC, someone has to fill the power vacuum. This happens everywhere and throughout decades of time. Whenever there is someone who is in power that has been removed for whatever means, whether they decide that they don't want to be there anymore. I ain't gonna get into all the reasons why people are no longer in power in different places around the world. Whenever that person's no longer there is a power vacuum, and somebody else has to step up. And he asked the question, why not Auburn? B. Will, why not Auburn?
There's no reason why Auburn cannot find sustained success. And sustained success actually probably looks like you can pencil them in for a quarterfinal in the playoff. That's sustained success. And you don't have to win the conference to do that. It's really hard to win the conference. Well, again, what Nick Saban was able to do year after year after year in the early going of his tenure at Alabama, I don't think that's going to happen again because there wasn't enough competition. There weren't enough other programs on the block, funded as well, recruiting as well. Now it's spread out all over. So what success has to look like right now, I think the closest you'll get to it probably will be Kirby because he's done it during a time where Nick Saban was over there still doing his thing. What we're about to step into now with Texas being the spenders that they are now on the block. Georgia's still there. Alabama's still there without Saban, but they still have enough tradition and infrastructure over there to recruit competitively. To do it now, you got to just be in the mix. Kind of like what we were going to be in the top 4 in basketball in the SEC this season because we got these players, we got this much experience. We're going to be up there. And it's looking like we're going to be 4th in the conference based on how things shook out after that Tennessee loss. I think that is a reasonable way to count success in football is, can I count you among the top 4 or 5 of these teams and spin a wheel as to what order you'll end up in? But I guarantee if they get in the playoff, they're going to make some noise. I think that's successful. I think that's somewhere we can be. Hugh Freeze is recruiting to that effect. He is recruiting well enough so far to get us there. Some of these guys got to pan out. You got to find the right quarterback. We all know how important quarterback is. Right. But there's no reason why we cannot get there if we think, hey, listen, you did something at Ole Miss. You did something at Liberty. You've been able to find quarterbacks and find offenses and find a decent defense at least a couple of times because Liberty, they had a couple nasty defenses while you were there. So you know what you're looking for. You know what you want to do. Get it rolling right here. Why not Auburn? I don't know why not. It can be.
Yeah. I mean, there are the reason why I thought that was an interesting thing is, as fans, when you hear that, you think, why not Auburn right now? And I wonder if, and this is a question, I don't know if I've even asked this on this show or not, or if I've hinted at it. I do wonder if the absence of Nick Saban as the primary rival of Auburn, as far as our rivalry is concerned, makes people speed up the clock on what they expect from Coach Hugh Freeze and say to themselves, all right, you ain't got no excuses now, bro, because Nick Saban's gone. We need to be the team now, as if the SEC got easier. I mean, it did get easier, quote unquote, because Nick Saban's not there, but Bama still has a machine that's there that's going to be cranking 5 stars in the direction of there. It's up to the coaching staff to close those guys, but you're still going to have the name of that university is still going to pull some people in that direction just because it is what it is. Now, whether or not Kalen DeBoer is the coach to be able to get it over that next, because Georgia was in purgatory for a while where they were a good enough brand that they could get athletes there, but they weren't able to close the deal for a long time until Kirby Smart got there, right? And so Bama could be in that same kind of scenario. It's a little bit less of that scenario because of the expansion of the playoff, but still, you could be on the doorstep and never get in. Ole Miss kind of is currently in that place now. They don't have the brand, but they're in the place now where they're kind of perennially just outside the door, but they haven't had an opportunity to step inside and get anything from that. LSU teeters on it, where they jump in, they jump back out, talent to get you there, and then every now and then they get over the hump. The question is whether or not Auburn can be one of those programs. Right now, Auburn's not even in the conversation, right? Right. And so the question is, does this speed up the clock for people who are looking at Coach Hugh Freeze and thinking, when he first got the job, I said to myself, 3 years, right? 3 years. In year 3, you need to see some significant changes in the trajectory of the program, and that's really when the wins need to start happening. And that win total needs to look like probably around 8, 9, 10 in year 3.
Yeah, 9, 10. I'm with you on that.
Does now without Coach Saban there, people think to themselves, all right, well, this year we need to be 8, 9, 10 wins because Auburn should be. I don't know if that makes people start to reset and get unfair expectations about what this season should look like, because the assumption is Bama's going to be worse, so Auburn should automatically be better. I don't know how that works in people's minds.
Well, unfortunately, you're right. People are going to start tracking expectations for what Hugh Freeze does to whether or not Nick Saban is there and how much Alabama fell off or doesn't fall off. We'll see, to be determined. But in reality, it was always, like you said, it was always 3 years just to right our ship, not worried about what's going on outside of our walls. Because let's be for real here. You and I have said this constantly. When Auburn is good, we beat Alabama. The challenge for these coaches going all the way back to Gene Chizik is, can you make us good? Like a good, if we get to double-digit wins, we're going to beat Alabama. Why have we not been a double-digit win team more often than we have?
Right.
That's it. The challenge is make us a really good team. It won't really matter how good Alabama is. The failure in our program has been the coaches that we have had have been unable to sustain success over like 2 back-to-back seasons of double-digit wins. We haven't even been able to do that. It's been what? Tuberville was the last time we had back-to-back double-digit win seasons. It's been almost 20 years. If Hugh Freeze is the coach that can get us there, it won't matter. But I do think that's not a year 2 thing. We were defunct enough in enough places where it was going to have to be like a clean erasing, wipe it away and build it back up again. And I know people don't like to hear that. And everybody's really exhausted because we've had Gus go downhill, and then you had Brian Harsin, and it never got going. And then Hugh Freeze comes in with a losing season. It's like, oh, well, this is our 5th year of being not, hey, but this is Hugh's 2nd year. Like just give him a minute. Year 3, I think that's a good time to start the clock on him. Now, you've got your players. If you've got the quarterback you think you've gotten, either Walker White, maybe early ahead of schedule with Hank Brown, okay. You've got options now. And it's not just shortcut right now, I got to get somebody in here options like Peyton Thorne may have been. Guys that you chose, that you scouted, that you recruited, wide receivers that you've been selling program, telling them it can be their time. They get in here, they look like studs. They look like studs at the camps. You're building it. And there are going to be fewer and fewer excuses each year. Year 3 is the first time where I think you can say, this is you. This is you, Hugh. Can you get us to where we need to be as a program so that it will be much less about who else is on the block and about us being as good as we can possibly be, because we'll dominate if we can get to the level of football that we need to be at.
Yeah. And part of the reason why I think, the fan frustration is there is, or why I actually still believe that a lot of people are going to speed this timetable up in the absence of Nick Saban this season, is how close Auburn played both Bama and Georgia last season, right? They say to themselves, man, we almost got them last year. We're going to be better in year 2 of Coach Freeze, forgetting to hit the reset button on most of the coaching staff and a lot of the players. Yeah. So, year 2 isn't really from a, B. Will buzzword continuity standpoint. Somebody got mad at me last time I said this is really year 1 point whatever, right? Like it's you're halfway resetting a lot of this stuff. And Coach Freeze wasn't the Coach Freeze that he's been traditionally. So though it is year 2 of his tenure, you hit reset on so much stuff that it's almost like another start. You're starting over again. And so the expectations, I think, are going to be a little weird. Let's get over to the comment section, though, and see what some of you guys are talking about before we go to our break. James Barnett gets us kicked off, and he says, after hearing what Coach Hugh Freeze said along with the players, I think this year Auburn will be scary on both sides of the ball. Just saying. So that's somebody right there who's saying he thinks, hey, this year Auburn can be scary. I don't know how many wins scary equates to, but you can definitely
You can scare the hell out. I mean, LSU was scary, but they lost, 3-4 games last year?
Listen, Missouri the year before last scared a lot of people.
Yeah.
It didn't equate to a lot in the win column for them. Now, then that next year, though, after they had the year where they scared a bunch of people, that they were making noise. And now this year, they're kind of expected to make that noise.
Right. That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. So we'll
3 or
see.
4 losses for LSU. I said wins, but I meant losses.
Yeah.
3 or 4 losses last year for LSU, yeah.
JJ Brand says Cam turning heads already. Speaking of Cam Coleman, out there during spring practice, I don't know that somebody 6'4", 180 pounds isn't going to make people look in his direction, especially when you're athletically gifted. I think it's way too early to like, and this is what something else Coach Freeze said. He's like, listen, he's a freshman. I think people are going to want to see him play a bunch, and he's going to play, but like, we're going to bring him along slowly, essentially. I'm not quoting him, but he's like, we're going to bring him along slowly and see what he can do out there. And I think he wants people to temper their expectations of these young freshmen and not expect them to come out there and light the world on fire in their freshman season.
Right. Yeah, protect them. I mean, you should protect them. You don't want them to. We've seen what fan bases can do when they feel like they have a right to expect something of guys and they don't get it. They start piling on guys and disrespecting them. You don't want that from your fan base. So yeah, that's a good job by Hugh Freeze. Protect those guys. Let them know it's going to be, a journey. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, we see what happened during this season with Aiden Holloway. People were calling him a bust already. The season ain't even finished yet. Yeah. Right, because he's a 5-star coming in with a lot of expectations, and people are like, oh, he's about to come up here and he finna bust everybody. And it's like, bro, come on, like, it's okay for him to be a 5-star and not dominate the league in year one, even though there are 5-stars that are dominant.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that every 5-star has to be dominant, and that doesn't mean that every 5-star that's not dominant is a bust.
Right.
Auburn Dad jumps in and says, War Damn Eagle, I really like his upfrontness about everything.
Yeah, he said that his mantra this year was truth. No, yeah, truth. That was just truth. Okay. Yeah. And Hugh Freeze is probably honest to a fault when he's in front of media. Because we could guess all day about what Gus meant to do or thought he was doing, or even Harsin to a certain extent. All we had to go on was what was the end result. Man, this ain't getting it done. But what Hugh Freeze does that I really like is he says, well, this is what I was trying to do. This is what I am trying to do. And then when it doesn't go that way, he's like, well, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
We can evaluate. He's honest like that with his evaluation of players. He's honest like that with his strategy on how, well, we wanted to protect the defense, so we didn't want to go so fast on offense. So now when I'm watching this game, I'm like, why are we not? Coach told us. That's why. And that's why we don't have an advantage that we could have on offense. And so you see how it works together. And I feel like it makes for a better watch. You're better informed when you're watching your team. But on the flip side of that, but you tell us too much stuff, we're gonna hold you. We know exactly how to hold you accountable for that stuff you said, because some of that logic don't work out all the time, and it don't work out like you thought. And then it's fair to say, "Hey, coach, you was wrong about this." But I do like I think that takes some courage. Maybe that's just how he operates best. Some people are like, look, I'm just gonna come out here and tell the truth. I don't care if you fry me for it. I like that about Hugh Freeze. I think it makes for at least a good conversation between fans.
Yeah. When he was talking about that, he was like, hey, I'm going to be honest with y'all. And, I expect honesty. It's like, he going to come in here in one of these press conferences and he going to flambe somebody at some point in time. Say, hey, you remember when you guys were talking about this and this and that? Like, I know, because he already said it. He's like, I know you guys are going to, I think it was in regard to the Cam Coleman thing. He's like, you're going to want to write certain things. And he's just like, listen, slow down. Like we're not trying to put these guys out here for you all to put them up on a pedestal so people can knock them down. JJ Branton says, I wasn't even mad about that loss last night. Well, we'll come back to that. I'll come back to that. It's basketball related. Haley says, well, now he has time to not mix and match the staff and players. I hope we see some proof of concept this year. 1 or 2 more wins is necessary. Wins is necessary. Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, I think it is, won 6 games last year. I think that most people expect to see at least 7 wins this year to feel good about it. I don't know where I am right now. Again, for me, it's too early for me to start putting relative ceilings and floors on things. There's so much that has to be shaken out, and really it comes down to, for me, how well this defensive line is going to develop. And he said in this press conference, we probably are going to have to go to the portal again to fill out some spots on the interior of the defensive line. So again, being very honest about where he thinks that the team is, just from a size perspective. I think there's size profiles of guys that he wants to be able to do certain things. He just doesn't have those guys, particularly without Justin Rogers, who I think they had hoped would return to give them more depth along the interior defensive line. You knew that you weren't going to keep Marcus Harris, right? But you were hoping to have Justin Rogers come back. He declares for the draft. So your interior defensive line is down at least one person, but two people for sure without Marcus Harris. The acquisition of Trill Carter helps you there, but you'd like to have more guys that you can rotate through in there. And he said, he's like, Jason Jones is going to have to be. He's going to have to take that next step for us in there on the interior defensive line and become one of the guys. Yeah. And that's 100% truth there. So, but the defensive line development, and then, of course, the quarterback. Who's going to be the person that is, the quarterback? He put more, I think. He wasn't glowing, and he also said, I know, before you guys kill me about saying I'm down on my wide receiver. He's like, I just don't know what we have yet in the wide receiver room as far as the ability to do those things. But I thought it was interesting, the juxtaposition of I'm confident that we have quarterbacks that can do the things we're asking them to do.
Right.
I'm not sure about our wide receivers. Yeah. And I don't know if that's more because, really, if you think about it, Coy Moore, Camden Brown, Jay Fair, Caleb Burton, right? Those are the four guys you have returning out of a room that will have 10 scholarship guys and 4 other maybe walk-ons, right? So out of the 14 guys in that room, only 4 of them are coming back, and only one of them has actually really performed for the vast majority of the season. Right. I think it's something that people forget too, right? Like Jay Fair last year, that was his first year as a starter in the SEC. Right. So any returns that you got from Jay Fair, that was just the beginning of what he could potentially do. Caleb Burton didn't really get significant snaps until the back half of the season last year. So we're just really seeing the tip of the iceberg for him. Camden Brown was hurt the vast majority of the offseason. This was the first year he had gotten any significant snaps, and he didn't really even play a lot of snaps until the second half of the season last year as well. So it's really still kind of an unproven room. And then you got a bunch of true freshmen and transfers to pile on top of that. Coy Moore is probably the only other person in that room that's had snaps, but still, even in his time in LSU, Auburn, never been like a full-time starter ever in his career. So there's a lot of guys who haven't had to shoulder that burden of being the guy. And the question is who's going to step up to be that person? And he said, I need at least 3.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Well, who was the transfer from Georgia State? Is it
Robert
Williams? Lewis. I'm sorry. Listen, that's probably the person I would be watching most closely in the spring, is because, okay, let us see what he can do. Does he fit your profile? Does he make that option route read correctly with the quarterback? Because if he can do that, then you've got a surefire hand on the outside. I know he's probably inside size, but he played outside. And then Fairweather is more wide receiver than tight end. And that's at least a little continuity. So the wide receiver room specifically, I'm with you. You got to know what you got there. If Lewis is a baller, I say a baller right when older type baller. If Lewis is a baller, Fairweather is a little more consistent with those hands. It might be almost academic because you got to get Cam Coleman on the field. I think he's going to be out there whether he is the best wide receiver at the spot as far as knowledge game one. Like, you just got to get him those reps and that experience so he can peak by the end of the season. There might be one slot open. Maybe. You want to go switch it up, have a different wide receiver out there. I think Jay Fair is going to be in the slot. What do you do with Caleb Burton?
He's probably going to play on the outside.
Okay. I know he just doesn't have the speed for the outside. But
yeah, he doesn't. Yeah. I mean, Caleb Burton ideally would be a slot. And so, that I think it's going to be interesting to see who gets reps and where, because as you pointed out, Robert Lewis from a size perspective is a slot guy, but you'd really have a cemented guy at slot. You have to rotate him out at some point in time, and you want to do some different things, and you might even go 4 wide at some point in time, so you'll have 2 slots on the field. But it will be interesting to see how the rep distribution is going to go with those guys, especially considering you have so many tweeners, essentially guys who kind of do this or kind of do this. Jay Fair is actually another guy who, for the vast majority of his high school career, played on the outside, didn't really play inside receiver until he got to Auburn. Right. So he was essentially learning something different than he had ever done before at wide receiver. So a lot of things that still need to get ironed out for that room for sure. Super chat here from Oda Smith, who says Fairweather is more of a monster wide receiver than a tight end, in my opinion.
He feels that way.
I mean, he's definitely a pass catching tight end. From a size perspective, he could be a big wide receiver, I guess. But to your point, I guess, Oda, he's not the best blocker in the world. That's something he definitely needs to improve on. And I think in order to be a top tier tight end, like you can play the position and line up at a tight end spot in line. But in order to be a top tier tight end, you need to be able to be a good blocker. You don't have to be the best blocker in the world, but like the reason why, George Kittle and Travis Kelce and what's the guy for the Ravens? Mark Andrews and Gronk when he was there all those years. Tony Gonzalez and you can go down the list of tight ends that were good pass catching tight ends. The reason why they were open so much had to do with the fact that they blocked so well. Honestly, last year we talk about Brock Bowers, right? Why he was open so much is because he blocked so well that you didn't know when he was lined up in this spot, is he actually going out for a route or is he faking like he's going to block? Like you don't know what that's going to be. And so it makes the defense a step slower on how they react to certain things. And it allows you to be a little bit more deceptive. To be really good as a tight end, you kind of need to be able to block.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can be a good pass catching tight end and not have to block. There's been plenty of examples of that. But to be elite at that position, you got to be a blocker.
Yeah.
Eugenia Akira says, I've probably pronounced this different every single time that I say it on the team. Eugenia Akira, I probably pronounced it like 15 different ways.
It's not the last one.
Yeah. What went wrong last year? Poor communication, poor talent evaluation, inconsistent philosophy, and Coach Hugh Freeze's foot and mouth disease with continual dissing players' talent on the team.
Yeah, if there's anything that I think Hugh Freeze, and I think he said this, they asked him what he learned from last year, and he said, he's learning a lot. It would be how you relate to these players. And there's something he talked about when he was talking about the leadership council.
Right.
Which is, I might say I want to do things like this, and they'll say, hey, why don't you dial that back a little bit? Because, kids are different now. The way he talked about players outwardly and about the talent that we didn't have to compete, that wasn't the best way to get the best out of that room. So if you already didn't have guys who were 100% bought in, weren't giving 100% effort, that was not the way to motivate them.
Right.
It was obviously not the way to motivate them. So now I wonder if he's at least learned that lesson. It sounds like he's learned, something, made something out of that first year that didn't work out so well. But I really, really do think that would be part of what's now in his tool set is I need to learn. Even if I don't know how to deal with the players directly, I'm going to get the players to help me understand how I need to deal with the players, which is why he said he really loved the idea of it being a player-led accountability thing. It's like, listen, I'm not going to be able to hold your feet to the fire because I'm going to say, hey, why are you late? Go run 100 laps. And they're going to be like, man, what is this, 1960s? I remember the Titans. And then, now they don't like you no more and all that stuff. But if you can get to play like, hey, coach, let us do this. We'll come up with the penalties so it makes a little more sense. That makes it a little closer. I hope he's learned that lesson. Learned that lesson, at least.
Yeah, that is remaining to be seen whether or not he's found the right messaging to get guys to buy into what needs to happen for everybody to be on one accord in terms of just playing together on Saturday. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. Let's get into a break. We'll get a quick word from our sponsors. We'll get back, and we'll talk a little basketball on the other side of this break. Auburn went up to Tennessee, and wasn't able to close the deal, but we will definitely talk about that. But you're watching the Midweek Report.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageRoom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Thank you to the sponsors of the War Report. Thank you to those of you who continue to be a part of the Green Name Gang. There's a lot of people who are continuing to do this during the the football offseason. I know a lot of people like this during football season. There's a lot of great things that I think they're great because I have fun doing them. You know, I'm gonna hype myself up a little bit. I think the film reviews we do during the offseason and basketball season are dope. So if you guys enjoyed that, I'm gonna continue cranking that out for y'all. So make sure that you get your membership active, and we will continue to do that for y'all. If you are a member and you want somebody else to experience it for themselves, you can gift memberships right now. They'll get a free month of membership. YouTube randomly assigns that to somebody. So make sure you get somebody on board with that. If you like audio versions of the stuff that we have going on, these are the places you can listen to all of the things in the network. We are the Auburn Express. We got the Uptempo podcast, College Loop, and Just a Sec podcast. Uptempo is doing some great stuff with baseball. Make sure y'all lock in with them. College Loop is always in tune to some of the other sports that we don't cover heavily on our channel, namely stuff like baseball, softball. Volleyball is about to get cranking again in a minute. So they do a good job of covering the breadth of Auburn sports that sometimes we don't get an opportunity to stalk on. So if y'all want to listen to that stuff, you got a place that you can go and do that. If you're into betting, we have somebody who can hook y'all up on that. Tip 2, BetUS is our space where we're going right now. 24-hour issue payouts, 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,500. Use the link in the description of the video when you want to go there. 24-hour customer service. They take care of you at BetUS. This has been a good betting partner for us, and they're definitely getting things cranked up as we get into March Madness. We got some more things coming up for March Madness for y'all, so y'all make sure y'all stay in tune with that as well. And last but not least, our folks over at MANSCAPED are sponsoring this episode. Make sure if you need to do your below-the-waist grooming, MANSCAPED is the place that you go. Use code RAPPORT for 20% off when you get over there, plus free shipping. In addition to that, they have, facial trimming. They got nose hair trimming. So it's not just about the one kind of trimming. Whatever you need to make sure that you look your best self, Manscaped's got you hooked up. I have, the performance kit that they have and a lot of great things there. I enjoy my Manscaped products. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Like I didn't think that was gonna be a thing for me. Like the trimming situation. Like I was just like, okay.
I especially needed the nose and ear trimmer. Like that was a need.
Yeah.
So I appreciate them for that.
Yeah, I didn't have the ear issues, but I need to, the nose hair. I did need to, make sure I got that taken care of. And I ain't really like using little scissors and stuff to do that.
No, I don't like that either.
Yeah. So anyway, I ain't gonna spend a whole bunch of time talking about how I groom myself, but just know it's happening.
Oh, that's funny.
Another super chat here before we get over into the basketball stuff. Otis Smith said, Caleb Perry at the slot, fair weather, Cam outside. He's giving you what he wants to see. Caleb Burton at the slot, Perry Thompson at the slot. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you just really wanted to go with big receivers for the entirety, if you wanted to go into like a big lineup, you could do that. I would put Fairweather at the slot and not the outside, and I put Caleb at the slot and Fairweather at the slot and put Cam and Perry on the outside if I was going with these four, just because I think depending on how, you could do switch releases. And anyway, I don't want to get into a whole bunch of strategic stuff, but yeah, how I would initially line them up, because usually how they set up the receivers is a number count. And so 1 and 4 are your outside receivers, 2 and 3 are your inside receivers. So as they lined up for like a play, they might be in different spaces because they're going to switch release. But I would go 1 and 4, Perry and Cam, 2 and 3, Caleb and Valdo, because I think that allows you to do a lot of different things based upon how the offense is set up. So anyway, that's not what you asked me, but still, that's how I would work that thing if I was the OC, Anyway, said I was going to get back to this because it was going to help us pivot into the basketball conversation. JJ Brand says, wasn't even mad about the loss last night. Connect being on fire was the difference. What can you do? Shrug. He definitely had a little shrug game situation going on at the end. And I was there in person to witness this. The guy who was sitting next to me, Auburn was up by like 8. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable with this lead, bro. Like, this doesn't feel like this. Like, I don't feel like Auburn was in command of the game at that point in time.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, man, because Connect could hit a couple threes, and this will be. And then, like, 30 seconds later, he hit the first one. I was like, yep, there's one. Came back down. He busted. I was like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, he went crazy, man. The boy had 39, bro. And it would have been 40
stuff.
if he had made all his free throws. It would have been 40 something if he had made all his free throws. He missed like 4 free throws in the game, something like that.
That was it was disheartening because, as I saw somebody note on Twitter, we have had a tendency this year to kind of not show up on the road. No, we played a great game.
Yeah, he scored
We
84,
played
bro.
A great game. We scored 84 on a great defensive team.
Yeah, man.
Broom brought it. Chad Baker-Mazar brought it. Leor got in there.
I think Chad had a bad game. I did not like the game Chad played he had his moments
In comparison to his previous game, no. But I'll say this: intensity. He did a couple turnovers. That behind the back in traffic thing, that was a critical turnover at a critical point. I don't know if it decides the game because if Connect's going to do what he does, then maybe it doesn't matter anyway. But I watched for years as Steph Curry. Their only Achilles heel when they were all healthy was turnovers. And he would just throw the ball away on some behind the back stuff. Like, what are you doing, man? I get it. You might be the greatest point guard of our time. Stop doing that. Yeah. Stop doing that right there. This is not a good moment for that. I'm glad you feel comfortable enough to be that loose with the ball in the paint, in traffic, Chad Baker. Please, man. That's not the time we need that turnover. So I'm with you. It wasn't a great game, I guess. What I didn't see was anybody's like, he's not himself tonight. That's more what I didn't see.
I thought that early in the game. In the first half, yeah, man. Like he missed some shots in the lane that I thought he should have been able to make. He had a couple of early turnovers. Like he had 3 first half turnovers and none of them were good turnovers. I mean, his stat line for the game overall, he ended the game with 4 turnovers in total. So he got better about taking care of the ball later. But the first half turnovers were all like lazy pass stuff. He was missing some easy shots in the lane that he normally makes. I didn't think that Chad had a particularly good game. I didn't like anything that he did up until like late second half in that game.
Yeah. Maybe that's the memory of the later parts of the game kind of overriding what happened before for me. But we played well in totality. Jay Will came in there. He didn't play as many minutes.
Man, come on,
I didn't expect
bro.
to see him for another
21 minutes,
whole week.
bro.
I was so encouraged by what he was able to do in that little bit of time that he was out there. Chaney, he had a couple good buckets. I thought he could have played a little better on offense once or twice.
This is where I actually like Chaney's game for the vast majority of this game. He was playing tough and physical. He didn't take a lot of like ill-advised shots. Now he still has this thing where just every now and then he'll go to the lane and he'll go up and the ball won't go with him. And so he's got to figure out how to be stronger in those scenarios every now and then. So he's not there yet where you're like, all right, this is a dude you put in the game and I know I could count. But I like the physicalness that he was able to bring. He went and like caught the ball at, the high wing. And then he would just like back his dude down and get into his mid-range. I was like,
that patience.
Yes,
and his mid-range was working. The mid-range was working. I did like that from Chaney. I guess I'm kind of harping on a couple of times where he lost the ball. Like that one, it was kind of a fast break, and he, like you said, he didn't go up with it. I didn't think that anybody played a. You said Chad Baker-Mazar played a bad game for him. Mm-hmm. Well, let me amend my statement. I didn't think anybody shrank. In that game.
I don't think it was just like the moment was too big for him. I think that for me, the role that Chad plays for this team, especially in the starting lineup, is to be an initiator of the offense. And I didn't feel like the offense really got going with the ball in his hands. And so, because they run a lot of the same sets, doesn't really matter. Let me just say this. Early game, though, Tennessee's defense came ready, bro. Like, they had scouted that film so well on the action that Auburn likes to do in certain scenarios, the baseline out of bounds stuff where they normally have the thing where Chad, releases and they kind of throw it over the top to him. They was like, nah, we're not having none of that. They came and got that really quickly the first time that they tried to do it. When they went and threw the ball to the corner, they trapped immediately on that. They was ready for that.
Yeah.
So, but this is why I think Coach Pearl does not get enough credit. He and his staff for how well they coach. They adjusted to every because Tennessee was locking Auburn down the first like 3 minutes of that game.
Yeah.
And they went and they made adjustments to how they were getting in. It was some of the same sets, but they got into it a little bit differently. They would make this pass a little bit before what they would do. Like Coach Pearl coached a masterful game.
He did.
Masterful game.
He did.
Yeah. I want to give, Rick Barnes and staff, credit for what they did to prep for the game, but the adjustments were made on Auburn's side as far as being able to get themselves in position to deal with how Tennessee was defending them. And then Dalton Connect just went crazy. Like that wasn't even no adjustment. That was just like, oh, we just going to get a ball to him and let him go crazy.
And credit for Janai Broome. We talked in the offseason about whether or not when it wasn't clear if he was going to come back or not. It was like, well, he's not big enough to play his down low game in the NBA. He's got to expand his range. He's got to shoot from outside. He's done that. If he's going to get down there and get on the post, he's got to pass from the post better. He's has done that. That part of his game has improved. I see improved.
Had 5 assists last night.
Janai Broome did exactly what he needs to do coming back here. His stock has to have risen in the offseason through now. But more than that, I see him defending big men better than he defended bigs last year. Last year, if a guy was his height up taller, it's like, I'm going to kind of do it. He would just get a lot of fouls. He is defending well. He looks like he's stronger, like he's more durable down there when he's defending bigs. He looks like he's blocking a couple more shots than he did last year. And I don't really remember his numbers last year.
I don't know what the statistical numbers on his block shots are this year.
Broome has improved, and to see him play that good of a game, because it was at one point it was Connect 3, Broome 3, Connect 3. Broome passing out of the double team. Somebody else got a 3. Like, he was making the right play, not just getting caught up in the, I got to show this dude up. He was making the right plays in the situation that presented itself, and that is a remarkable progression from what we've been over the last season and a half, where guys try to go get it all back real quick, especially against a team where you're on the road and you might feel like, oh, well, this is too much. We got to get it back. They stayed in pocket, and they played correctly on the road against that's probably the most challenging game they would have had to play. Bama's a game we could have won. They actually got shook early at Bama, which is why that loss was so disappointing. Bama was a winnable game. This was one where, of course, it was a winnable game, but you brought it. You brought it that game. I don't think there's any reason for this team to hang their heads. If you get another shot at Dalton Connect, man, double or more. Get that ball out of his hand quick.
Or you just hope he don't be unconscious, bro. Like he was. That's the thing. I think that there were the downhill drives were disappointing because he got all the way to the rim unimpeded. They weren't doing
no
a good
help
job
on
of
the
helping.
couple. I was like, what?
That one was probably the as far as defensive disappointments and letdowns. But the stuff where he was making the shots from outside, bro, that was a hand in the face over a 6'10" dude. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do with that, coach. Like the only thing I could have done was block it or foul him.
Right.
I contested. I was right there with him. He just pulled up and hit it, bro. Like, I can't do more than that. Right. And that was a couple. I mean, like, Zakai Ziegler had a couple of them where he would just, like, dribble up into a 3, and you like, come on, man. What? You ain't like that. You're not like that, bro. Like, what are we doing tonight? Like, seriously, man, on a night where Auburn shot 41% from 3, 41% on the road, Kentucky shot 53% from 3.
Tennessee.
Y'all are not Tennessee. Excuse me. Tennessee is not a 3-point shoot team like that. Yeah. Come on, man.
Like that was disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where you want to be mad because you definitely cost yourself at an opportunity at the regular season title, but like Coach Pearl said in the post game, sometimes you just got to tip your hat and be like, all right,
yeah,
I couldn't do nothing with him tonight.
Yeah,
I couldn't do nothing with, and he went crazy, man. Like I was sitting there watching. Now this is the thing, like Dalton Connect. There are guys that I watch play basketball, and I say to myself, he's a good college player, right? Like I felt that way about guys like Jimmer Fredette, right? Where I was like, he's a good college player. who else have I seen recently that was like good in college, but I was like, I don't know if that game translate. Like I felt that way last year about Janai Broome, where I was like, he's a good college player. I don't know if his game translates to the NBA. I think he's put himself in position now where he could be an NBA player because he's expanded his range. He's gotten better at his free throw shooting. He's passing out of double teams, but all the things that you just talked about have made him a more complete basketball player. So I think that he has a better opportunity to go to the NBA now. I don't think that way about Dalton. I think Dalton Knecht is a pro.
NBA player.
He does all the little things that allow you to be good no matter what level of basketball it is. He moves well off the ball. He doesn't get into a lot of bad foul scenarios. So he doesn't his defense isn't where it's like, man, he's taking a lot of chances. That's not really going to work at the next level because these would be more he doesn't do that kind of stuff. And he's athletic enough to be able to play with the best athletes in the world. He shoots the ball from range. He can drive left hand, right hand, finish at the rim. He can elevate. He does all of the stuff necessary to be a good pro. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be some NBA superstar, but I will say this. You got a lot more room to operate in the NBA with the way that the freedom of move. Last night, there were more NBA fouls called than I think I've ever seen in a collegiate game, where it was like people driving and oh, you put a hand on him, that's a foul. It's like, bro, what are we doing? That's not. Usually in college basketball, it's more NBA playoff refereeing where it's like, nah, we're going to let y'all be physical a little bit.
Right.
And, you can do I was like, yo, this is but then they let some of the most egregious stuff that officiating crew last night. And this is not a reason. I'm not saying Auburn lost because of officiating because it was terrible both ways. Right. There were some times where I was like, yo, that's not Auburn got the foul call right there. It's not a foul. Or
that one where they called it off of Tennessee because they said Ziegler tipped the ball when somebody was passing it. Yeah. It was an errant pass. There's no way we should have had the ball right there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Whatever.
That officiating crew did not do a good job last night. I don't know how they go back and watch that film later and say to themselves, yeah, I think we could score it. It was bad, and it was bad a lot. So I listen, but again, I don't think officiating is the reason why Auburn lost that basketball game last night. I think Auburn's defense in places where you needed to get stops, they just weren't getting stops, right? You had a lead in the second half of a game that you were losing at halftime, and you gotten up to an 8-point lead. You should be able to close the deal on those types of games, even against a tough team like Tennessee. But again, when somebody's just going crazy like that,
what do you do?
What they could do, which is we're just going to double team him to get the ball out of his hands.
It didn't work more than it didn't work, which was fine, but you can't keep doing that because I think one thing that you risk by doubling consistently is if Knecht can make the right swing pass and they find the open guy, you risk everybody else getting hot because Vescovi, nothing. Ziegler, almost nothing except for a couple lucky shots. Man, it was it. Dalton Knecht was the whole game for them. So do you let him, and we saw this happen early, I want to say early in LeBron's career, he was like, I'm going to make the right pass. It's like, all right, yeah, but the rest of these guys is bums, though. So they could not do it. They couldn't hit open shots. They couldn't make the right pass or make the right play at the right time. It's got to be you or nothing, and at least you find out something about your team. Now, maybe because those players were playing at home, under those circumstances, they do make those shots. I think there's a higher likelihood that if you double every time and say anybody but you, well, these guys are at home, they're comfortable, they've got a chance to clinch in front of this crowd.
Yeah. If that had been a road game, I don't think Kentucky wins. I'm gonna just be if a road game or a neutral site game, I don't think Kentucky wins that game. I'll be honest with you.
Why you keep calling them Kentucky?
Oh, Tennessee, I don't know, because they played like Kentucky last night with Knecht out there shooting threes like that. But the only thing that gives me a little bit of I don't know, it might be a quasi-home environment in the SEC tournament too, because it's in Nashville. Yeah, it's in Nashville, so it's like Tennessee fans are in abundance there. So I don't know how much of an actual neutral site game that's going to end up being if Auburn has an opportunity to play them again. But yeah, I think if that had been a true neutral site game or an away game for Tennessee doesn't win that game, in my opinion. But listen, hats off to Tennessee. They played a hell of a defensive game early, and they played a hell of a offensive game late. And they did what they needed to do to get the dub. It was just one of those games where, again, you just kind of have to be like, yo, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, total rebounds in this game, Auburn lost the rebounding battle by 7. But they only lost the offensive rebounding game by 1, right? And that one was that late one to Vescovi that was just like, yo, what happened right there? Like, you finally got Connect to miss, and he missed bad. I'm talking about he bricked that jump off the backboard, and then Vescovi just kind of, the ball lands, and he just comes and gets a layup. I was like, man, all right, I see how this goes.
I see what's going on. I see what's going on here.
And then, but to the credit of what we're talking about with Connect, I think Tennessee felt the same way about Janai Broome. Every time Janai touched the ball late in that game, they was like, nah, somebody else. Right. They were sending double teams at him like anybody but him needs to take this shot because he's killing us right now.
And everybody else was stepping up late. That was what was so beautiful.
Aiden hit the corner three out of the timeout. I was like, see, this why you here, my guy. This what they brought you in here for minutes like this, hitting that corner three out of the timeout.
So let me ask you this. So I saw when we were without Jay Will starting, Bruce said last game because he thought that offense was going to be so important that he started Aiden. He wanted to get us in the offensive flow. Without Jay Will, we need to compensate for those points. This game, I would have assumed that it was going to be a slow-going game, but he still went with Aiden instead of Trey, a better defender at the one.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at, number one, Trey not starting, or number two, Trey not closing?
I wasn't surprised at Trey not closing the way that the game was going offensively, and I think that they wanted to keep the better shooter out there. I was surprised at Trey not starting. Well, not surprised. I think how well Aiden played in the last game made them say, well, let me see if we can roll him out here again for this game, as opposed to like flipping the starting lineups over and over again, because Jay Will still wasn't starting.
Right.
That wasn't surprising. I think they wanted to keep that unit more the same. But yeah, I wouldn't say surprised, but to what you're saying, I did think that defensively you probably wanted Trey to be in that game a little bit more. But Trey's got to give you some more offense. Like, he's got to get back into tournament Trey as far as what his offense looks like for this team. But Aiden, and he didn't have a lot of points. I mean, he only had 5 points last night, but he only took 3 3-pointers, right? Like, he wasn't just going out there chucking up threes. He took threes in the flow of the game. He wasn't trying to force it. I think this is the point output won't show it, but I think this is one of the better big games that Aiden has played so far this season. Baylor was probably his best big game, which is crazy. It was his first one. But in SEC play, as far as games against quality opponents, this is probably one of the better games that Aiden Holloway has played, because I felt like he played so measured. Like, he took care of the basketball. He only had 1 turnover in the game. Didn't force a lot of bad shots. He got us into the offense when he needed to. He hit a big shot down at the end of the game. He was what you needed him to be in the moments you needed him to be there. Again, I was talking to a guy who was sitting next to me, and I was like, this is one of those games where you need Aiden, the shooter, to show up, and then like a couple possessions later, he hits the corner three. I'm like, see, that's why you're here, to do this sort of thing. But yeah, overall, to the point that was initially made, I'm not upset at the outcome of this game. As a fan that wants to see the team win every game, of course, disappointed they couldn't come down with the victory. But again, a guy hits 39 points and like 21 of them are in the second half. Most of those in the second half of the second half. I'm like, all right, bro, like,
you just tip your hat, man.
Yeah, he was going crazy, and a good game for Tennessee overall. Adu early in the game was doing a good job of hitting like medium range shots. I think Auburn was like, yeah, we're fine with him taking that shot, and he made a couple of them. You're like, all right, well, I guess we got to defend this dude out here at the medium now. Then a couple of three again. Ziegler had 17. Right, he was a guy that's and he normally gets his stuff going downhill. He got a couple of downhill drives, but they did a decent job in the paint.
Yeah, they did.
Let me see, how many blocks did Auburn have in this game? 3. Tennessee had 5, which that's actually probably the reverse of what, if you would ask me to pick certain stat lines, I would have thought Auburn would have blocked more shots than Tennessee did in this game.
Yeah, me too.
Bruce Pearl getting the tech. What did you think about that one? because he went crazy at one point in time.
The
about
play
this.
that he went crazy about, I also thought that it was a foul at the time. The later camera angle showed that, oh, okay, it wasn't a foul, but it looked like a foul. If you side profile, it looked like arm hit arm on the shot. So I get it, especially when the foul calls at that point in the game, they look like they had been kind of sporadic and nonsensical. So yeah, I get it. You're gonna call us for that, or you're not gonna call us for that. Man, what are you doing? But he was smiling like almost as soon as he was over there on the side. They were kind of getting the announcers even said it. They said Bruce Pearl and his staff getting a free timeout out of his technical. It almost seemed whoever was calling the game, they tried to give Bruce credit for doing that intentionally. I don't know that he did. I don't know that he didn't, because he didn't really seem so fired up like they had to hold him back, and he didn't seem. It was like, hey, Tech, y'all come here real quick. Come here real quick. So maybe it was intentional. I thought that the team still looked composed. That was the most important thing to me at that time. That's a little stretch when the foul calls weren't going our way, and the team wasn't breaking down. We were still in this game, and we had our opportunities to keep the game close, which we did. And eventually he just, the Connect just went crazy. But I didn't mind it. I know that those points, resulted in the end, but he only made one of those two technicals, I think Connect did.
Yeah.
That one point didn't decide the game. It was the threes, like 3 trips in a row, that decided the game. So
the only thing about the Tech at that point in time is they also get possession, right? So it's like you know what I'm saying? You give them the point and you give them the possession. It could have been much worse than what it was. I thought it was. I actually do think it was strategic. I think he just felt like, you know what? I need to do something to fire my guys up. And, let me get this opportunity to come and talk to them and calm them down a little bit in this moment. This is probably one of the more masterful uses of timeouts. Like, I don't give Bruce Pearl a lot of credit for timeouts a lot, but I thought he did a really good job of using timeouts in this game.
Yeah.
I liked what Coach Pearl did in this game, and he proved to be the guy that you want him to be in big games. Yeah. Let's get a couple more comments before we get out of here. Not all of this is basketball related, but this one is, JJ Brand says, player development, pay attention, recruits. I think that's one of the best things that you have from this staff is they really do. Like, look at Jay Will's progression. Look at Janai Broom's progression. If you stick on with this staff, they figure out how to maximize what you're able to do.
Right. Everybody who comes here, if you're going to play consistently, you're going to get better at what you do. You look at what Jabari's doing, what Kessler did from his first year at UNC to his second year here at Auburn. People come here and get better. Sharif only played for a minute, but from when he stepped on the floor to when he left, he got better. Yeah. And he continues to get better. I hope that that's a big selling tool. I mean, Bruce has talked about how he doesn't really want to get into the whole bidding war and NIL thing. He wants to recruit guys who just want to do the work, who have some experience. So, you got a good gauge on them and what type of player they can be. And you find a hard-working true freshman like a Jabari Smith or like a Aiden Holloway who get the idea of what they're trying to sell and buy into it. And hopefully he keeps that going, because I think that that's going to pay just as many dividends as paying top dollar for the best players.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, Coach Pearl has also said he doesn't really like doing the whole. He said, he admitted, I don't really like recruiting, right? Because especially what it's turned into. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. But the way that he's able to help develop players, I think, is a masterful thing that pays dividends. Is particularly for guys at, like a Chad, right? Like that. Right now, his stock isn't high as far as an NBA guy, but how Coach Pearl is able to utilize him and put in positions to do things and showcase his talents will get his NBA stock rising a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses. A couple of things that we skipped over in the football conversation we'll circle back to. James Barnett says, fellas, we should have won 8 games easily last year. So with that said, shouldn't we be at 8 or more wins this year?
I don't think so. I agree with you that we should have won 8. 8, looking at how the season played out, 8 should have been a given. But that was the easiest schedule I think we've played in. I can't remember when we played schedule that easy. It should have been 8, because even as a mediocre team, that was a very easy schedule. It's not going to be nearly as easy a schedule this year, considering who we have to play on the road. We had gimmies in Arkansas and Vanderbilt. And who was the other team was bad? Mississippi State.
Mississippi State, yeah.
So now we got one guaranteed gimme. I think it's still a gimme in Vanderbilt as far as conference play. But who else is a gimme on that schedule?
I don't think that there are any gimmies on our schedule at all this year. I mean, even listen, somebody mentioned it in the comment section about Coach Jerry Kill
Kill.
going over to Vanderbilt. He apparently is the kryptonite to Coach Freeze. So that's a difficult proposition. I don't know that Vandy from a skill play. I don't know where they are from a skill perspective. But he at least knows what he's doing from a scheme perspective.
Man,
so,
they got that quarterback too, man. I don't know. He gonna be over there DDTing our defensive backs.
So yeah, I don't know that there's any gimmies necessarily on the conference schedule. Listen, you get Oklahoma at home. That's not a gimme game. Arkansas is not going to be as bad, but they got to figure out their quarterback situation.
That's true.
I mean,
okay, Arkansas. Okay.
But again, I don't know. I haven't paid enough attention to what they did during the offseason to know if they've gotten any better at any of the spots. They had a lot of getting better they needed to do.
Right.
Who else is on our schedule this year? Of course, you've got Georgia on the road, Bama on the road, Vandy at the house, so at least it's at the crib this time. Missouri, they are a good team this year, so there's not really any gimmies out there. So yeah, I wouldn't say that because we almost won such and such games this year, we should win this many games next year, because every season is a new challenge and you've got new things that you've got to figure out. I think that Auburn still has too many things to figure out to put that kind of expectation on this team right now. Or at least I don't have that expectation of the team until I see the things that I talked about earlier get figured out. Because without those things, without the interior defensive line getting better, you don't stop the run, and you have to be able to stop the run in this league.
Right.
And then you don't even have to worry about whether you can get into people in the third and long situation and rush the passer. You're not going to get there, right? Unless your scheme puts you in a position to do a much better job than what the scheme did last year. And then if you can't figure the quarterback position out, forget whatever else you think is going to be happening. Your offense doesn't work. I don't care if you have, Randy Moss and freaking Calvin Johnson as your wide receivers. If the person who's throwing them the football doesn't see him open or throws inaccurately or makes the wrong decision on a read as far as whether to give or to throw in those scenarios, none of that matters. Doesn't matter how good a wide receiver you are if you don't have somebody who can deliver the ball to you consistently. So we'll see what happens in those two spaces that will allow Auburn to at least compete in games. And then do you have the talent to win some of the close games that you dropped last year? That's the question, right? Can you are you going to be in a position from your coaching and your scheme and your just the rudiments of what it takes to be a good football team to get you in a place where you're close, right? And I think last year we had enough stuff to get us close, right? But we didn't have the talent to take you over the top in those, in the golden moments of the game, right? Where it's like, all right, we need a stop right here, or we need a big catch. We need the crucial block. We could not get those things in those moments. I think we have maybe some of the raw talent to get you there. Now it's a question of whether or not we've got the rudiments really to make that raw talent matter. Like you should wash the bad teams on your schedule from a talent perspective this year. But can you get into those crucial moments against the better teams and be able to close it out? I don't know the answer to that yet.
That's true. Yeah, I still think the season hangs on who you start with at quarterback, because not only do we have, you were right, interior defensive line is a major concern. There's talent on this team that didn't play last year that's here that is going to be auditioning for that interior defensive line. We might have the answers on the roster from last season. They just didn't play. Darren Reed's going to be inside.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of effect he's going to have. I mean, I know he came as an outside guy, but he actually shouted out, Hugh Freeze did, a couple guys that could be big difference makers. Quarterback is the biggest one because, unfortunately, I appreciate Mike G for trying to temper everybody's expectations about Peyton Thorne being the starter. I think if you choose him, you better be right. Because if you choose him, he's going to get the starts and the reps early in season that would have been perfect for a young quarterback who needed experience to grow up. If you choose this dude, do not be wrong, because you just skipped over 5 games of development with a friendly schedule that a young gun who is possibly better could have used. I think therein lies our season. We should definitely be 5-0. But if he's not the guy and you don't find that out until after that 5-game stretch, the season is cooked.
Yeah. Well, I won't say cooked, but you definitely put yourself behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. Last one here. Brad Browning says the odd thing about the relationship with players is why is this new? Coach Hugh Freeze has been has an established career. He has been doing this the whole time, or is this something new? Well, I'll let you answer, and then I'll give my answer about this.
I think it has to do with the changing dynamic of player and program and coach, and that is that players are now they're not only just a big signing, but a big signing, and then you are just beholden to what the program and what the coach wants you to do. You are a big signing. All this energy was put into signing you. Now they have to play you and keep you happy. Now they have to pay you to keep you happy because you can leave, and that monumental signing class can be gone in 10 months. So the coaches don't have as much power in that relationship. Hugh Freeze has talked about how the reason he got into coaching is because he saw the effect you were able to have on young men. And a lot of that is built into this authority figure that you are, and you get to develop young men. You might not be an authority anymore because if I don't like the way you're talking to me, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
So how you going to develop me if I don't want to hear what you're saying? So now you have to be less of an authority, at least in the way it traditionally was. It's an old school coaching thing that I think he was doing. You can still do it when you're somewhere like Liberty because these players, this is probably their best opportunity.
Right.
If they're at Auburn and we recruited them as hard as we did to get them here, they can play anywhere. They don't have to go for what you're selling anymore. And because of that, that authority figure relationship is broken. And now he has to figure out all over again, well, how can I actually get through to them if they don't have to listen to everything I say and they can just leave? Well, how do I get through? How do I get them to stick through this process and be better players on the other side, be better men on the other side? Because now if they don't want to hear it, they can jet. I think he has to figure that out. That's what he's trying to get around. How can I get the best out of you without you shutting down and leaving? That's what Hugh Freeze is trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, I mean, you answered it kind of the same way that I would. I think the landscape of college football is so different now that you can't, the messages don't necessarily align in the same way. And the stuff that, he was saying publicly that, we were talking about, like, hey, this might not be the best message. People don't have to wait around and hear you talk about, well, we need to get better. It's like, well, coach, I'm right here. It's like, well, if you feel like you need to get better, you can do that without me, my boy.
Yeah.
I can go somewhere else and be bad. Since I'm gonna be bad, I just go somewhere. Like, and that is a mentality thing, and that's not necessarily right or wrong. It just is what it is, right? And so you have to adjust to those things. And he's admitted he hasn't really gotten a grasp of the whole transfer portal thing yet, right? So, and you have to be able to, in order to get the quick turnaround that people want to see from programs, you have to be able to supplement your talent in the transfer portal in certain key spaces, right? And so they've got to figure out a better way to do those sorts of things. So we'll see how Coach Hugh Freeze adjusts, and I fully expect him to adjust because I like what he's put together as far as his staff in specifically the off-field portions of it that's going to help him in those recruiting aspects. So looking forward to it.
Yep.
All right. We're going to get out of here. We appreciate you guys jumping in with us. Listen, as always, if you have not done so, make sure that you get your Green Name Gang active because those are the people that are getting all of the behind-the-scenes things that we're doing. We will get into some more film review for basketball, and we appreciate everybody who loves the basketball stuff. We got plenty of football stuff to do during the offseason as well. You can gift a membership if you want to somebody, and they'll get a free month of membership on you. Make sure you lock in with the folks on the podcast. We're the Auburn Express. We got the Up-Tempo Podcast, College Loop, and Just a Sec Pods as part of the network. TWR Gaming is live right now. If you're into collegiate sports, video games, well, not even just collegiate, but if you're into sports video games, we have a channel where we're going to be talking about that stuff. We're going to be doing some Madden tournaments, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you lock in with the gaming network. The first one went live this past week, but we're going to start cranking that stuff up as well. But that's it, man. We're going to get out of here. Before you all get out of here, make sure you share the video with somebody. Hit that like button and follow us on social media if you would, and we definitely appreciate that. We're out of here until the next time. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.